Thanks for taking the time to watch this short video. This is another well-being wander. Today, myself and Flynn, we're just going a short walk starting from Menstrie, and we're going round a walk known as the Jerah or the Jerah Lost Slope. Most of it's just Land Rover track coming up the east side of Menstrie Glen, taking in some of the sights, pointing out some of the access points and the exit points to some of the hills again, just like my last video round about the Nomad and Craighorn. And we should eventually meet the road over at the Sherrifmuir area. We then follow that road back, and then we then come back down that'll be the west side on the Dumyat side. Now the weather's not been great. I think the forecast has actually let us down a wee bit, but later on it's going to get a bit wet and some high winds, so we're hoping to be over in Dumyat, which you can see about the bottom third of at the moment, just behind me there. We're hoping to be on that side just to shield us for these winds that are going to be come over. So I'm going to stop waffling on and I'm going to start making... Right, just having a closer look at Foxboy. It was designed and placed here 2008 by an artist known as Scot. If anyone's not really familiar with the works of Andy Scot, you may be aware of a piece of work called the Kelpies. It's two large horses' heads that sit at the basin of the Firth and Clyde Canal in Falkirk. It's a pretty well known piece, and if you like the sculptures as well, we're quite lucky enough to, we've actually got 5 of them in the Shire area alone. 2 of them in Alla, so if you look hard enough you'll see where the second one is. It's not actually that far from the main one near Alla College. So let's have a wee look. So the fox is sitting on a large wheel here, so that'd be the water wheel for the mills. There's a buzzard on the wheels, and that would be to symbolise the buzzards that are familiar, or sorry, the buzzards that would be living in the woodland area here in Menstrie. And the fox's cell, I'll try and get that round there, but he's actually wearing a hooded top. This is to modernise it a little bit. The idea is that the kids in the area in the days gone past, they actually kept foxes as pets. And there's also a maple leaf on here, and I believe there's a connection between Menstrie and Nova Scotia. For a walkout itself, there's 2 ways of doing this. One, you can actually, if you can see, there's a scout hut up here you're going to aim for, and there's a small footbridge. You cross over the footbridge and you've a steep path in the wooded area going up steeply at the right hand side. That takes you straight up to Dumyat. We're actually going to aim for this row of cottages up here, and we're going to turn left in here and be met by a small kissing gate, and then that's where our walk starts. So I better stop waffling on, we're going to crack on. Just making our way up the start of the Land Rover track. There's a few steep sections. It basically just zigzags all the way up till you get to the first viewpoint looking onto Dumyat. And then for there, the next goal is the deer fence, and I'll show you a couple of tracks there that's going to lead onto the hills. I'm wanting this to be like the last video where it's basically just, I'm just taking the dog a walk. It's just a well-being wander, and the idea is for people that are not familiar with the area and want to come on the Ochils, just show them where the access points are and the exit points are, just to keep them safe. Okay, this is us just getting our first glimpse of the viewpoint. This is a really nice viewpoint here, gives you good views over Menstrie. And just glancing up there, we get our first views of Dumyat. Now, zooming in, again apologies, it's just all handheld phone work here. You can't even see the top of Dumyat there, it's just in the background of the first sort of big pointy part there. You can just see, maybe just make out the brief outline. It's quite clagged in at the moment. There's a lot of low cloud this morning. I was hoping this... Just stopping to catch my breath a wee minute. Meant to point out this sign here. It's clearly marked there to Jerah Woodland. The track's just here, obviously. Now this is an interesting walk. I've seen a lot of guys doing this one. It takes you along to the Jerah ruins, the ruins of the old farmhouse that I mentioned earlier. And it just follows you down sort of inside Menstrie Glen nearer the burn. I've never actually done this walk myself. In all fairness, it's a walk that I've been meaning to do for some time now, so maybe in a few weeks' time we'll get back up here and we'll have a wee crack at this. Now this wee lump of rock here is not really much to look at. It only stands about 280 metres. It's known as the Dun, and it used to be a Bronze Age hill fort. There's another hill fort here as well. There's actually a few in the area, along areas of the Ochils. There's actually one just there to the west side of Dumyat as well. See there, just another slight view of the Dun there. You can see how steep the sides are. So you can imagine it way back in the day. It's all fenced off and whatever and fortified. It must have been quite impressive at the time. At this point of the walk we actually got a wee bit of respite because the path starts levelling out. So we're just going to follow this Land Rover track right along. You can see we're actually getting a bit of downhill section. The part I'm not looking forward to, you can't see it there, Lost Hill's just under the clouds, so just in front of Lost Hill. The path sort of sweeps away up this steep section here. So just quickly looking down Menstrie Glen. You won't be able to see it in the camera at the moment. I'm just getting a brief glimpse of Jerah ruins and the Lost Reservoir away in the distance. So we're going to come out away at the back of here and back down this side. The sun's trying to break out sometimes, so you're actually getting a wee bit of view to Dumyat at this time. Just quickly, access points. So just at this deer fence, there's a lot of deer gates and deer fences put up to protect the plantation in the area. Now there's a lot of plantation going on in the Ochils over the Sherrifmuir and the Glen side as well. So this path here is probably the best one to take you up onto Myreton. Again, just sticking to this side of the fence and sweeping round. It's very clearly marked. It's a pretty well worn path. You can't really miss it. You'll eventually meet the wall on your right hand side and follow the wall up the last steep section on your right hand side and you'll see the wee cairn. And from there you can actually walk along and meet up onto Colsnor. It's not my favourite way of doing it. I actually prefer taking the path. I'll try and zoom in for you there. There's a small dirt track further down just at the other side of the burn. You might just make it out and it'll take you up onto Colsnor. And again, it's clagged in as well. So I think this is one of the good things about these types of walks is you don't always need to be up on the hills to enjoy them. You can just be in the hills to enjoy them. At this point of the walk, we now start following this main track on the right hand side. It gets steeper from here for a bit. Clouds really starting to come in now. Temperature's dropped as a result, it's all getting damp. You might just see Flynn on the left hand side of the screen. He thinks he's going down to Jerah. He's in for a surprise. So I would highly recommend visiting the farmhouse at Jaira. So to do that you take this small track down here and you'll pass some old farm round, some shields, and just follow the track round to the right. You can't miss it. It's a lovely old farmhouse. Now Menstrie Glen itself for the last couple of centuries has primarily been used for sheep grazing, and on this walk up here you will pass loads of farm ruins, shields, etc. Even looking into the sides of the hills you can actually see where there's been farming and the remains of walls that are now buried. The farmhouse at Jerah Glen's probably the most interesting one because it's the most recent, and it was abandoned in the 1960s. It was inhabited, it was an actual farmhouse. It's well worth a visit. It's a lovely building. So if you're up this walk you can cut down here, you can actually cut this walk short and have a sandwich, cup of tea, whatever at the farmhouse, and then go up onto Lost Dam and meet the track on the Dumyat side and make your way back to Menstrie from there, or turn right and come down this side to a figure 8. Just quickly as a point to note, when coming up this track you'll eventually find another track that sweeps down sharply to your right. I forgot all about this because it's been a while since I've been over here. This track, if you follow this one, it will take you along to the foot of Colsnor, and if you follow it all the way to the end you'll eventually come to a fire gate at the foot of the Myreton. But again, we are just going this way. As you can see we're quite clagged in, there's not much in the way of views, so we're sort of walking along here in a sensory deprivation bubble, but Flynn seems to be happy anyway, his tail's still going. This is us just come across the track for Big Hunt Hill. This is the one up to the up to the right hand side there. You basically follow the track up and you come through the gate. And on a day like this, I'm imagining visibility would be quite hard, so your navigation skills might be put to the test on this one. It's not the most distinctive hill. Just slightly past that access point for Big Hunt Hill. If you look on the left, it's not going to be showing up very well here because we're actually in the low cloud. We're quite high up here. I tend to look for one of the fire breaks in the plantations there, so there's one just there, and I would normally follow one of these fire breaks up until I was greeted by the deer fence. And I'd want to keep the deer fence on my left hand side and follow it right along. You won't even see it because of this cloud. And again, it's a sharp turn to the left, it's a 90-degree turn, and I just keep that fence on my left. And you'll be greeted by a large stile going over that deer fence. I don't use that stile, I just keep going straight on, and you eventually come across a small dry stone dyke with a fence and a small stile. Across that at the Bealach, and it's a pretty boggy area, and I just make my way slowly up onto the hill, sort of gradually sweeping over to my left. Eventually meeting again another dry stone dyke that runs across the hill with a fence on it, and when I'm at the highest point, cross that dyke, cross that fence, and that will take you onto the top of Lost Hill. That's us finally dropped down into the Sherrifmuir area. You'll probably see there's road running down here with a procession of cars. We're going to be taking it further along this route along here past these trees over the bridge towards the Dumyat area. I forgot to point out the turn off to get back off the main road. It's fairly obvious, it's signposted for Menstrie, and I've took a quick picture of it, so I'll stick that in for reference. So sharp left off the main road, down mate with this gate, and you've got a nice stile to get across as well, and somebody's left a muddy club. And we're just going to follow this muddy track all the way back to Menstrie. Just stopping here for a wee moment just to point this out. Just after you come through this kissing gate here, there's a small sort of grass track runs round to this wee bit of burn here. You might just make out a wee bit of water here in the distance. This is actually the start of the Lost Dam. The Lost Dam was put here for the Lost Reservoir, sorry, just to sort of feed water down into the neighbouring villages, whatever Menstrie and such. If you really wanted to, you could leave the main track here and take this grass track and just follow the side of the dam down, and you'll eventually get the chance to access onto Jerah farm as well. It's quite a nice wee walk, it's worth seeing. Just a wee quick point of interest, well, interesting to me, maybe not anybody else. I came up here a couple of years ago with Flynn. It was during one of the summers, and down the sort of deepest part of the reservoir towards the dam end, there was absolutely no water in it at all, and the ground was baked dry. I just wish I had still had that picture just to post it up somewhere, just to let people see what it was like. But it's nice to actually see some water running into it again. Obviously it's been taking advantage of all this rain we've been having. Walking back along the west side of Menstrie Glen, it's been nice and sheltered from the weather, the wind. It's been really good coming along here. I've seen quite a few access points for going up onto Dumyat, but this is probably the most obvious one. Just coming up from Menstrie and going across the wee bridge and whatever that I pointed out, coming up through this gate here, up onto the Land Rover track, and just following this way up here. This is probably about the quickest way up to Dumyat from the Menstrie side. Just taking a quick look back to reflect before we drop back down into Menstrie to the car. I'm just looking over to the viewpoint that I showed you at the start of the short video, and then again working our way up, going along. And there's Myerton, and going right along the other side. You might just coasting our way up in the clouds again, you know, just going round the hills and along the glen. It's been an absolute lovely walk this. All that's left to do for us now is just drop down through this gate back into Menstrie. That's us now dropped down from the glen, and we're back in Menstrie. Foxboy, where we started our short film, should be here, and It's been a nice walk. It's very straightforward. It's all Land Rover track apart from the short section of road which we count there are no cars on. If you are interested in the Menstrie Glen area or the Jerah farm, Lost Arm, that type of thing, have a look on my YouTube channel. There's a short playlist been put on there called Drone Shots. I did it over the better weather when I was trying to get used to how to operate the drone, take film on it, that type of thing. There's one on there called Jerah, and it shows you quite a lot of the points of interest on there. It's just the weather's not been very good for filming anything today. So this is Flynn, my name's Sean. This has been a well-being wander. Thanks again for watching.